Hi everyone, this is Chris and welcome to a DML tutorial. In this video, we'll explore the DML fundamentals, how to use Mission Editor's trigger zones to set up and configure modules. For this tutorial, I'm using Mission T010 setting the Stage.miz. It's linked below and I recommend that you download it now and follow along at your own pace. Let's start up the mission and choose slot 01 call Q1 unsafe. Take a look outside. On your left you'll see red and on your right some green smoke. This smoke is created by one of the simplest DML modules, the smoke zone module. Let's enter the mission editor to inspect how this is done. The first point I want to make here is a non-point. Although DML comes with more modules than you can shake your mouse at, you normally only pick a few per mission. This tutorial mission, for example, only uses two modules, the smoke zone, which we'll look at first, and the limited airframes module, which we'll inspect in the second half. DML is built similar to a box of Lego bricks. You never need all bricks, and you can build terrific missions by only using a few. This is our Su-25T Frogfoot. Notice the trigger zones above and below the runway 09er. Click on the upper one called Some Smoke. On the right screen edge, Mission Editor shows the trigger zone editor, where it displays the details for this zone, its name, type, and some other stuff below that. It's the other stuff below that is of our interest now. Look down at the table with those red trash cans. This part of the trigger zone editor is almost never used in a standard mission, and this is where DML gets all of its information from. This is where you tell DML what to do. This table consists of three columns: name, value, and trash can. There is only one line in this table, and it reads smoke for name and has red as value. When a mission starts, DML looks in all zones for attributes like this and collects the information it needs to do its magic. When it finds a zone that has an attribute name of smoke, it knows that this trigger zone contains instructions for a smoke zone. The value red for smoke tells DML which color to use. There are only a few colors to choose from, and the DML documentation tells you which are available. Also, the center of the trigger zone tells DML where to place the smoke on the map. So, with adding attributes like smoke red to a trigger zone, we can use Mission Editor to give DML all necessary information for the various modules that DML manages, like where, what, how, and when something should happen. Using trigger zones for this has a number of huge advantages. First, you can change directly on the map what is happening and where. Even better, you can use copy-paste to rapidly populate the map with those trigger zones. Let's do this now. I copy the trigger zone and then paste 4 copies along the upper edge of the runway. I also added the middle one by clicking on it and then changed that smoke attribute's value from red to blue. Let's jump back into the cockpit to inspect our handiwork. And yes indeed, 4 red and 1 blue smoke in the middle. And this is the essence of DML. You place trigger zones and then add or change attributes until you get what you're looking for. Trigger zones are used for another, similarly important purpose: to globally configure the behavior of a module. So what does that mean? I also added the limited Airframes module to this mission. In short, this module places a maximum on the number of pilots that you can lose. You lose a pilot if you crash the plane, get killed, or ditch the plane. Ditching means changing to another plane outside of sanctioned zones. The frogfoot we are sitting in is at Kolki. The only zone sanctioned for change of aircraft, however, is Kutaisi. So if I now change to another plane, it will cost me the life of one pilot because I'm ditching this plane. And here we are at Kutaisi, with one pilot life lost and only 2 more left. Now, the maximum number of lives per site is a global setting which currently resides at 3. Let's change this to 6 and, while we are at it, also add Kolki to the list of safe zones for changing planes. Alright, let's first make Kolki safe for pilots. According to the documentation, a safe zone is a trigger zone with a pilot safe attribute. We see that the trigger zone indeed has a pilot safe attribute with a value of blue. When set to blue, DML knows that only blue pilots may safely change slots in this zone. If you tried this here while controlling a red plane, that site will still lose a pilot. So let's make Kolki safe as well. I copy the zone from Kutaisi and then move over to Kolki and paste the trigger zone over the airfield. We have to make sure that the runway is fully covered, because if a pilot is just a hair outside the zone, changing slots counts as ditching. Back in the frogfoot at Kolki again, let's change slots to one of the 2 planes at Kutaisi. Now, we no longer lose an airplane. The plane we just left now was inside a safe zone, and leaving it did not count as ditching. Now, let's change slots again to the airborne not landing soon frogfoot. Changing into the plane is not a problem, because, again, I'm leaving my aircraft behind in a safe zone in Kutaisi. This new aircraft, however, is outside of any safe zones, and leaving it will result in the loss of a pilot. Let's eject to confirm this. That S10 in front of us will make short work out of this frogfoot anyway. Okay, that's great and all, but let's imagine that instead of just 3 lives, I want this mission to grant me 5. The number of lives per site is a module global setting, and these are controlled with config zones, which, unsurprisingly, are trigger zones with attributes. The documentation for limited airframes lists a bewildering array of settings that we can mess with, but we are only interested in one, max blue. That is the attribute that controls the number of lives we allow the blue site. There is a zone called Limited Airframes Config south of Kolki. Open it and we see that there is currently only one attribute in there, max blue, exactly the attribute we are looking for. I now change the value to 5 and we are done. But wait, that documentation listed a lot of other options. Don't I have to add attributes for those as well? Only if you want to change them from their defaults. DML always assumes defaults for everything unless you explicitly tell it otherwise. That's why we didn't need a config zone for those smoke zones. We simply accepted all smoke zone defaults. So, back in our mission, we choose the flying S10 attracting frogfoot and await our impending demise. And indeed, as soon as we lose the aircraft, the pilot count is decreased by 1, and now stands at 4. Bottom line, DML uses trigger zones to feed information to the modules, and this includes module configurations. Whatever you need done with DML, we always use trigger zones with attributes. That way, we can see where modules work on the map, reposition them easily, have a convenient editor right inside DCS, can copy and paste them around quickly, and we never have to edit a single line of code. Play around with the mission, and when you think you're ready, let's proceed to the second awesome DML feature. Make modules talk to each other.